Cafe Cubal, 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, New York. You also find them on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners, and of course on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, in their giant behemoth of a brown striped building. So make sure that you go out and check them out today and let them know that Wake Up Call sent you their way. We are here for a very special Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora broadcast. As you know, our typical times as you're seeing on your screen are Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. This is a special bonus broadcast of Wake Up Call on YouTube.com and Facebook.com/WakeUpCallDT. We're on both of these avenues, including MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT and on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, as well as WakeUpCallDT.com's homepage every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So, for those of you that are looking for the show throughout the week, that's how you're going to find us in our normal scheduled broadcast times. And we are, of course, very happy to be here with you today for a special broadcast on the heels of Syracuse losing their game against the Pitt Panthers on the road at the Pete, 99-82. So we're here to talk about that as well as the state of Syracuse basketball for this entire season up to this point, and we're also going to discuss the state of the ACC. So a lot of great stuff coming up here where sports meets that thing called life. Would love for you to weigh in and give your thoughts. That's what we're here for tonight, is to have an open dialogue, right? So I want the fans to give their take. I want you to give your thoughts and let me know what's going on in your mind. So whatever your thoughts are, I always ask people to justify your opinion and be respectful. Outside of that, let's have at it. Let's have the conversation. Let's talk about it, because Syracuse is not what fans have, come used to seeing, and it's been a difficult road these last few seasons. Now, Boeheim in 41, now this is his 47th season, so this is saying if it didn't happen, in 41 of 47 seasons, Boeheim has had at least 20 wins at Syracuse in 41 of 47 seasons. Right now he has 16, and in order for him to get 20 this season, he would have to win games inside of the ACC tournament, because if he wins his last two, he'll only have 18. So that's why I said 41 of 47. That's where things stand right now. It's not that it can't be done this year, but like I said, they would have to definitely do some things inside of the ACC tournament, where Syracuse has typically struggled to do anything. So we shall see as we step forward here, but Syracuse in a place right now that fans are not used to. And in Jim Boeheim's tenure at Syracuse, at 41 of 47 seasons, having at least 20 wins, the last 3 years, that has not happened, and it may not happen this year. So this is where the whole "what have you done for me lately" comes in from people, is the conversation now saying, okay, Jim's won at least 20 games in a season 41 times in 47 tries. But in the last 4 seasons, if it holds this season, for 4 seasons straight, he will not have 20 wins. So to do it 41 times in 47 tries, awesome. To not do it the last 4 shows that, in a lot of people's minds, the program is going in the wrong direction. Now, I want to preface this by saying that Jim Boeheim has been the heartbeat of Syracuse basketball, if not all of Syracuse University, for many years now, right? For decades now. He's done things that are unthinkable. Coaches have won games, but nobody's won as many games as he has in one place. Not even Coach K did it all in one place. On top of that, to make the Final Four not just once, but in multiple times, and then add in that it was in multiple decades, which shows that as he got older in the game, as he was a coach longer, he still could get the team together to be relevant in each of those decades. And when you do that, that's, uncanny to send a team consistently throughout the decades to bring a team to the Final Four and to win a national championship when a lot of schools have never even known what it's like to be in the NCAA tournament, let alone in the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four, championship game, or win a championship. So when you put all of that to reality and you let that be known to people, it obviously changes maybe some people's view that Jim Boeheim isn't that good of a coach. He's definitely that good of a coach. The question is now, what about the future? what about today? And in the here and now, Syracuse is not in a good way. In the here and now, the 2-3 zone, and again, folks, I played basketball the majority of my life. And in playing basketball the majority of my life, I didn't forget what I was taught. I was taught the box and one, the 2-1-2, the 3-2, the 2-3, the man-to-man. We had out-of-bounds plays. I think we had at least 4 of those. We had offensive plays. So I come to this game from an analytical standpoint, and the analytical side of me says Syracuse doesn't seemingly run any offensive plays, right? You see a team come down, they yell motion, they put their fist up, they dribble to the right side, something's being done. You never see Syracuse come down and call a play. I never see Judah come down and put a 1 up or a 2 up or a fist up or yell out motion or yell out whatever they want to call it, Call it Cuse, call it Orange, call it, Bay, call it Snow, right? What about the snow play or something like that? You never hear any plays get called. You never see any motion of something being called when you don't say any words. And you just, because some teams, they put up an action, right? They put up something, they show something with their body language, right? They put up the fist, and if is it the fist on the right side or the left side? So they put up the fist. Some teams put up the fist, you're supposed to know what it means. Some teams yell out something, you're supposed to know what it means, motion. Some teams put up the fist and say motion, and you're supposed to know what it is. We don't see Syracuse do that at all, and that's something that frustrates me as somebody who's learned the game for many, many years, is that they're not running plays, right? And when you're not running plays, that to me, how can your offense be successful? How can you get back into a rhythm? How can you reset, readjust, and rethink what you're doing if you are not running an offense? If you don't have plays that you're running, I don't understand how you could be successful. So that's problem 1, right? Not running offensive plays, not seemingly having a plan on offense. And that to me is frustrating. Now, the positive side of this, because tonight, if y'all want to be negative, you can have your opinions and your thoughts, but I'm going to do what I've always tried to do in life, more often now than ever, which is spin to a positive. So we're going to talk about the negatives. We're not going to sugarcoat things, but we're going to find a positive. So the negative, Syracuse doesn't run offensive plays. The positive is that, to me, Joe Girard creates his own shot. Prove me wrong tonight. You can't. You can try. We can have the conversation. But Joe Girard creates his own shot. And no matter what Joe does, there's something that he does wrong. I've realized that with some fanatics. There's a difference between fan and fanatic to me. A fan has their constructive criticism, but they love you no matter what. A fanatic will find a negative to every positive, a problem to every solution. So Joe Girard, in the first half, doing his thing. Joe Girard putting himself toward 20 points early on in the game. But at the end of it all, people, he went quiet. Oh, he did that. And, and there's so much. And I liken it to Trevor Cooney, and maybe I can liken it to Michael Carter-Williams when it comes to the type of verbal abuse they've taken from people that call themselves fans that I don't really believe are fans. Now, Joe scored 19 tonight. He was second on the team behind Benny Williams. Second on the team behind Benny Williams. 4 out of 5 starters scored in double figures. Justin Taylor started, did not score a point in 17 minutes. And that's going to happen. He's a freshman. Don't put him on the stake either. I stick by my word. And my word earlier this season is that Justin Taylor, who is a freshman right now, a true freshman, Justin Taylor, mark my words, if he stays at Syracuse for, 2-3 seasons, I think he's going to get better, and I think he's going to be really something special if he does stay to be a junior. And I've gone down to saying that before, and I'm saying it again. And I'm saying it on a night where he didn't score, because I believe that he's going to do it. Now, here's the thing. Let's go back to Joe. Joe Girard does not get enough love when he does well, and he gets verbally tongue-lashed if he makes any mistakes. But here's a picture I'm going to paint for you. There's been a lot of Syracuse shooters in recent history that can shoot open threes. And if you are a Division I player, and not a center, but even in today's basketball game, maybe it doesn't even matter. Maybe I can say everybody, all 5 positions on the floor. If you can't make a 3 wide open, I don't understand why you're a Division I player. And I can take maybe some centers out of that argument, but nobody else. There are players in Syracuse history that could shoot open, but couldn't shoot with a hand in their face. Joe Girard creates his own. There was times where Buddy struggled shooting with a hand in his face. There's times where Cole did not play. There was a few moments where Cole was good, right? But we only got to see him for a season at Syracuse. James Sutherland struggled when somebody put a hand in his face. And I'm not saying this is a witch hunt. I'm saying this is what is there. I'm speaking the truth here. Jerry McNamara could shoot whoever was on him. And if you were going to guard him to a certain point, he'd go 2 inches farther, 5 inches farther. He'd go a foot or 2 back and shoot from there. He'd shoot from half court. So again, this isn't a witch hunt. This is me telling you what I see. In recent history, Syracuse has not had a lot of three-point shooters that could shoot a 3 with pressure. Joe can. And Joe's gotten better at it. And there were some shots that Joe took today that reminded me of Jerry McNamara. That fade with the leg out, shooting it up in the air, kind of leaning back, taking that shot, kicking his leg out. Beautiful. Multiple times tonight against Pittsburgh on the road at the Pete, Joe was shooting with a guy on him that he separated himself from. And I have seen a lot of good three-point shooters at Syracuse, but not all of those three-point shooters have created their own separation and their space. Some of them, if they were guarded heavily, look like a different player that night. Some of them wouldn't shoot. Joe continues to grow as a senior, so we still haven't seen the best of Joe, and I think we're seeing the best separation, arguably, of Joe, because he is now creating his own shot. There's been games this season where little to nobody did anything offensively, but he did, right? It's like, well, this guy couldn't get started, and this guy couldn't get started, but here's Joe and Judah. Joe Girard creates his own shot. So does Judah. But I'm talking about Joe specifically because people verbally harass Joe all the time, and people seemingly let Judah alone right now. And maybe that's because of the hype, and maybe that's because he's a freshman, or whatever it is. But the thing about Joe is that Joe isn't just the three-point shooter on the team. He's the three-point shooter that can create something out of nothing. And there's been multiple three-point shooters on Syracuse that have been really, really good three-point shooters, but not that good when someone put pressure on them or when they had to create for themselves. And Joe, and maybe it's because he's played point guard a lot of time at Syracuse, but he knows how to create for himself, and I think arguably he's creating more shots for himself this time around as a senior than he ever has. I think his most difficult shots went in tonight against Pittsburgh many times, and to me, he looks better. He took some tough shots tonight, and from somebody who shoots shots like that and spent my whole time practicing shots like that and putting myself in tough situations and being the shorter guy on the floor, and I'm shorter than Joe, but being the shorter guy on the floor, I can honestly tell you that playing this game my whole life and watching Joe and knowing what I did and knowing what I had to do in order to get shots off at different things, I have to give Joe a lot of credit for creating enough room to take the shot. And I haven't heard anybody talk about the fact that Joe can create his own shot and that he does it successfully. He scored 19 points tonight, and I'm sure people are mad at him. I had people writing me messages at the second half going, oh, Joe's got to get started. Joe's got to get started. Joe did he did this in the first half, now he's got to get started. And, so it's like, even if Joe has a good half, people are still mad at Joe. It's like Joe can do no right, ever. And it's annoying. So, that frustrates me because I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that notion at all. And I definitely believe that I believe that Joe Girard is better than what he gets credit for. I believe he's better. So, to me, I very kindly would like to tell people to back off of Joe. And if you don't, well, he'll just create space and shoot over you like he did tonight against Pittsburgh. And so few have done at Syracuse in recent history. The other issue, the 2-3 zone. And the 2-3 zone to me, again, now I understand Syracuse doesn't play a traditional 2-3 zone, right? That's the conversation. The conversation is it's more of a hybrid. And so, and I'm seeing people write in right now and saying negative. I mean, well, here it is. I mean, it's like now Benny's getting it. Benny just had the best game of his career, and people are writing really nice things about him and really crappy things about him. So, some people are going to be negative for the sake of being negative because that's who they've been and they don't want to be anything else. Some people play the negative role so well that I don't even know if they even know that they're doing it anymore. They probably do, but it's like they fell in love with negativity. So the 2-3 zone, okay? Let's talk about the 2-3 zone. Now, again, they say it's got man-to-man nuances and 3-2 nuances and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, it's a zone. And I played zone many years of my life. Now, if I'm a coach, I don't want to play a hybrid. In a game like this, against a team like that, when Virginia, Pittsburgh, Colgate, now there's certain teams you expect and anticipate. Let's go through Syracuse's schedule this year, shall we? Let me go through Syracuse's schedule for you. Because I'm going to tell you the teams that I would have anticipated would be shooting threes. Because Pitt is not one of those teams that you think year to year, oh yeah, that's a three-point shooting team. Okay? You don't expect Pitt to do that. That hasn't been Pitt's game. Pitt's game has had three big guys inside, and they trust the play inside. They might shoot a few threes here and there, but Pittsburgh has been known over the years to be the team that wants to be physical inside, and they trust their front court more than their back court, right? So let's look at this right now. Okay, shall we? Let's look at this. Syracuse this season. I'm going to go through the games, and I'm going to tell you the teams that I would have anticipated would shoot threes against Syracuse. Maybe Lehigh. Okay, definitely Colgate. I would say Bryant's going to do a little bit of everything, but I've learned that over the years. I would say Notre Dame would do that. I would say Cornell would do that. I would say Virginia would do that. Potentially Virginia Tech, Miami, North Carolina. Now, this is on average that I would say these teams would. Florida State, because they've gotten better at it. They got big guys that could shoot. And NC State. Okay? So I would say there's a ton of games where you expect and anticipate teams to shoot threes. Right? To shoot a bunch of them. You don't expect Pitt to be the team that does that. But yet, Pittsburgh is doing that now. They've become that team, at least for this season. And here's the thing with the 2-3 zone. I don't care if it's a 2-3 traditional zone or if it's a 2-3 hybrid zone. You do not play a zone against a team that shoots this well in a night like tonight. You don't. You abandon the zone. You play man-to-man. You play man-to-man. Because it doesn't matter what zone you're playing. 2-1-2, 3-2, 2-3, box and one. They're all guarding spaces. They are all guarding, or 2-2-1. You're guarding space. You're guarding space. If you're playing a 2-2-1, then, if you're playing, if you're playing box and one the other way, right? A 2-2-1 or a box and one, however you want to call it. So you either got one guy at the top or one guy at the bottom. If you got a guy at the bottom, just run a baseline. Baseline. You got a guy at the top, whoever has the ball at the top of the key, they're taking that person. So if it's the true point guard, the shooting guard, the small forward, whoever it is, whoever comes to that front area, you're taking that person, right? So a zone is to guard the space. Man-to-man is to guard the man. In a game like this, when you have people shooting out of their mind, you have to stop guarding the spaces and start guarding the three-point shooters. Okay? You got Nike out there shooting threes. You got Cummings out there doing it. You got Elliott out there doing it. You got Hinson out there doing it. Hinson took 17 threes. 17! Okay, there's some teams don't take 17 threes in a game. He took 17 threes. 17 threes. So let me be real about this. This is the game where you abandon your zone. You have to. You have to. You have to. And they didn't. And in a game like this, you give Pitt arguably their best game from beyond the arc. And Boeheim has said in the past, there's going to be 3 to 4 games a season where a team's going to shoot really well against us and we're going to lose. And that was when Tyler Ennis was playing at Syracuse, and the first thing I thought in that post-game press conference was, what about when it's single elimination? What about when it's conference tournament? What about when it's NCAA tournament? What are you going to do then? You can't just say, hey, 3 or 4 times a year, somebody's going to shoot good, and whatever, we're going to lose. You can't say that. Because you're essentially saying, hey, we're going to play the 2-3 zone. If somebody shoots really well against it, then we're going to lose. We're going to take the L. Right? And you might be, and if you do that in a 31-game regular season, you got plenty of games to wiggle around in. But it seems like as time goes by, Syracuse's defense is working less and less. It's becoming less and less effective over time. Less and less effective in the ACC. It's not even effective against Bryant or Colgate or Cornell anymore. It's not effective. It's not effective against the teams that you usually beat the you-know-what out of. It wasn't effective years ago against Vermont in the NCAA tournament. Okay? Teams that shoot threes, teams that want to take 30, 40, 50 a game, love playing Syracuse. Why wouldn't you? I saw Syracuse's defense tonight. I was a three-point shooter my whole life. If I played right now, I'd want to sit out there. And I can tell you that if I played Syracuse's defense tonight, I would have had a great time. There was a bunch of wide open threes. And I loved going to the free throw line. And Syracuse, there are teams that will not foul someone shooting a three all season, or once a season, or twice. Syracuse did it multiple times in this game. And they were fouls. They hit the wrist, they slapped the hand. Those were fouls. There were some fouls called in this game that I didn't understand, or some fouls not called in this game that I didn't understand, but there were fouls in this game when it came to shooting threes. You cannot foul somebody shooting a three once in a game, let alone multiple times in a game, and Syracuse did that. Why? Because you're guarding a space. You're guarding a space. You're not guarding somebody. When teams shoot threes like this, when Jim Boeheim saw this team get this hot this quickly in the game, he needed to shift to man-to-man. Not full court press for 3 possessions, man-to-man. You don't have to play man-to-man full court. Play man-to-man half court. Some people think when I say play man-to-man, you're like, you got to play full court? No. You play man-to-man. You play man-to-man, right? You play man-to-man half court, man-to-man full court. Let the guy dribble down, pick him up as soon as he crosses mid-court. But you have to play man-to-man in these situations. It's not a fluke that there was a season within the last few years where Syracuse gave, I think, at least 3 teams in the regular season their best three-point shooting nights ever. You can't say, teams just shoot well against us sometimes. Teams are shooting well against you because your zone is not doing enough. And you can call it a 2-3 standard or a 2-3 hybrid, but at the end of the day, it's a 2-3. And if it's a hybrid, then it's a 2-3-3-2 or some type of respect in that sense. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work against Virginia. It doesn't work against Pitt this year. It's not going to work against Miami. It's not going to work against a North Carolina team that's getting better. If Syracuse goes into the ACC tournament, not even thinking about man-to-man and playing a 2-3 zone, they might be out the first game. Because the teams that you're going to have to play against in the 8-9 line, if they stay there, you got to play North Carolina or you got to play Wake Forest, okay? So maybe you get by Wake, but if you play North Carolina, You play Miami, Pitt, no. It's not going to work. Once something happens over and over and over again, you can't say, some teams shoot well against us. Our defense is good, but some teams are just better that night. You can't say that. The 2-3 zone being 100% of the time, you can't do it anymore. You can't. Again, I respect Jim Boeheim. I think that he has, over his history, been one of the greatest coaches to ever touch the game. He is one of the greatest coaches in the sport of basketball, period. high school, college, pro, whatever you want to say. He is one of the greatest coaches ever, period. He's won over 1,100 games. He is one of the greatest coaches ever. And I'll fight anybody on that. Comma, he's stubborn. And the 2-3 zone does not work 100% of the time. Remember when Providence ran it all the time? How many times did Providence even make it to the NCAA tournament running it all the time? It doesn't work 100% of the time. It works part of the time. And I think Syracuse would scare the hell out of somebody if they played man-to-man and 2-3 zone half and half. They played man-to-man half the game, 2-3 zone the other half of the game. I think that they would confuse teams, and I think teams would be a little bit jumbled, and they'd play off their game because they don't expect it. I would do it just for the sheer reality that teams don't expect it. But we don't see that. Now, I said every criticism will come with a positive. So my positive is that I think this team will get better. I think collectively they'll get better. This entire Syracuse team can come back next year. Benny can come back. Jesse and Joe have been awarded the COVID bonus here, so they can come back. Justin Taylor, Judah Mintz, Malik Brown, Quadir Copeland, Peter Carey, they're all freshmen, right? So you have all of that. And you have Munir Hema, who can come back because he's considered a sophomore this year. So you have that side of it. And I believe, because he's played 4 seasons, that there's a COVID year for Symir Torrance as well. He played 2 at Marquette. He played 2 at Syracuse so far, which this is the second one. So you can legitimately bring back your entire team that you have this year. Syracuse could bring back their whole squad. And I believe if they bring back this entire team with experience together, now Jim's got to get open-minded like he's never been in recent history. Now they say he's played the zone forever. He hasn't played the zone forever. There was man-to-man. But Jim has leaned on the zone, and I think he's leaned on it too long. You got to do something else. You can't say, well, my players aren't athletic enough to play man-to-man, or they're not strong enough to play man-to-man, or not fast enough to play man-to-man, because that's bull. If you're playing Division I, you knew how to play man-to-man the day you picked up a basketball and actually got out there on a court with somebody. You've been playing man-to-man since you were 4 years old, because that's all you teach the kids. You're not going to teach 4- and 5-year-olds a zone. You're going to tell them, go out there, guard that guy. What should I do, coach? Stay on him. When? Always. Be his blanket. Man-to-man is the easiest defense to teach a child because it's guard that person. You see that guy? Timmy, you see Bill? Yeah, I see Bill. Don't let Bill get the ball. Period. It's the easiest thing to teach. So, every guy on this Syracuse team has played man-to-man probably more than they played anything else their entire lives because that's basketball. So to say any reason why they can't play it is ridiculous. Well, they might get beat. Okay, so you play man-to-man help. You play man-to-man help defense. You play man-to-man, you got a guy on the three-point line, he fakes out, Joe Girard comes around him, then Jesse steps in. Play man-to-man help. That still gives you a little nuance of a zone, but it puts the onus on man-to-man. It's man-to-man primarily with the extension of having zone elements. I would rather them play a man-to-man with zone elements than a zone with man-to-man elements, because that's not working. A predominant zone that maybe kind of looks like a help type, but it's not. It's not working. Man-to-man help defense is what Syracuse needs to do right now. Because teams are chomping at the bit to play Syracuse. They love to play Syracuse. Why? Because Syracuse's defense is not built, and I don't even care how fast they run. Now, they need to run faster. They need to get their arms out more, and they have to do more on defense. But even if they were running with their arms out at all times, speedy as all get out, you can't play a 2-3 zone 100% of the time. When you're losing to Colgate, who you beat over 50 times in a row over decades, you can't do it anymore. You can't do it anymore. Losing to Colgate, that if I was Boeheim, that would have been my, okay, you know what? Point taken. Point taken. So they got to adjust. They have to play a different type of defense. They have to. They have to. Again, as much as I respect Jim Boeheim, being stubborn is going to give you your fourth season in a row without 20 wins. At some point, you got to put the stubborn away. You have to. Another positive from tonight, Benny Williams had the best game of his career. 24 points, 8 for 15 shooting, 5 for 6 from 3-point. 5 for 6. That wasn't Judah. That wasn't Joe. That wasn't Chris Bell even. 5 for 6 from 3, Benny Williams. 5 for 6. He accounted for more than half of the threes the team made. Syracuse went 9 for 16 from 3, 56.3%. 9 for 16. 5 of those come from Benny. Without Benny, the team would end going 4 for 10. So he increased them by almost 20%, going 5 for 6. Benny had the game of his life up to this point, and he's only a sophomore. Benny Williams, who I appreciate and I respect, and I'm thankful that he knows what I'm about as compared to, other things in this world. Benny and I have had a lot of conversations. And there was a time where people were trying to insinuate that Benny was leaving the program. That happened last year, and it happened this year. And if he stays another year, well, somebody's going to have to make up something else just to keep with the rolling habit, I guess. Every year we're going to pick something stupid to say about Benny, and it's not going to be weighted in any reality, but someone's going to say it because somebody needs to get clicks on their website so somebody can keep their job. And it's stupid. It's ridiculous. And Benny doesn't deserve it. Nobody does. Nobody does. So, a couple weeks ago, everybody wanted to make like Benny was leaving, and to make it another reason to harass Jim Boeheim, to make it another reason to say that Jim Boeheim should retire, to make it another reason to say that Jim Boeheim was out of touch. And what happened? Benny didn't leave, and Benny just had the game of his life. Now, Benny, when he came into Syracuse, and times this year, not as often, but Benny shoots straight. Instead of shooting up, he'll shoot like a direct line. And it's not a good shot. But remember C.J. Fair, right? He grew his shot over time. He got better in his 4 years at Syracuse. Benny's gotten better already. And Benny's shot looked a lot cleaner tonight than it's ever looked to me. So shout out to Benny Williams on having a career day, 24 points in 34 minutes, back in the starting lineup, 8 for 15, 5 for 6. He had 9 rebounds in the game, just shy of a double-double. Maybe this is exactly what he needed. So let's spin it to a positive for everybody who wants to attack Jim Boeheim. Maybe sitting Benny and not letting him be a starter and making him watch, maybe that's exactly the fire that Benny needed under his butt. Because sometimes you gotta sit to make you want it, and then you're better, right? Sometimes you gotta sit and it gets better. To put it into perspective, Benny Williams as a true freshman last year totaled 56 points the entire season. He had 24 tonight. And maybe taking him out of the starting lineup for a couple games is exactly what he needed because he's playing better. Maybe it made him work on his shot more. Maybe it made him do a lot of things differently. But whatever it did, Benny's looking better, and I'm happy for Benny. His shot's looking better, and he was the brightest spot on the team tonight. Judah Mintz knows how to attack, and he's getting better at not forcing things. There was multiple times tonight where he dribbled, didn't take the shot, didn't force it, didn't go wild inside. Many times he stopped himself and passed the ball, which shows me that he's becoming more of a point guard and hopefully more of a leader as well. There are good things to build off of. The 2-3 zone cannot be played 100% of the time in the game, or Syracuse is going to get murdered. And when Pittsburgh starts shooting threes like Colgate, that should be a signifier that the times are changing and you need to not play the zone 100% of the time. Benny, bright spot. Joe Girard, bright spot. even though he went quiet in the second half. 19 points or 19 points. If Carmelo got 19 points, I don't think people will be losing their mind over him. So Joe Girard creates his own shot. Love it. Benny's shot's gotten better. He was hitting threes, and he was hitting jumpers of all kinds tonight. The majority of his points came on jumpers, not on inside play. It came on jumpers. He's had that good, and people don't give him credit for this either, but going underneath the basket and having that up and under over his head, he's had those great plays where he's been able to go up and create for himself on a tough shot underneath. But his jump shot never looked better in his collegiate career than it looked tonight against Pittsburgh at the Pete. Another positive, Judah Mintz, learning to be more of a leader. This team can all come back again, as I said. If this entire team comes back next season, they're an NCAA tournament team. And they're a force to be reckoned with. And then people are going to like Jim Boeheim again, and people are going to shut up, and they're going to pretend like they didn't say anything this year about anything, and they're going to delete all their tweets and everything they said on Facebook message boards and this, that, and whatever. This was not a great game. Defensively. Offensively, it was pretty darn good. You shot almost 60% from three. It's a good game. Okay? Syracuse shot 50% from the field. They got to make their free throws. They went 17 to 24. Right? They got out-rebounded 37 to 31. They allowed 18 offensive rebounds. And they've been allowing rebounds in all season long. And leaving gaps in the zone and not boxing anybody out. The ball went up on offense, and the Pittsburgh player boxed out Jesse, and Jesse didn't even attempt to stop him. You can't do that. Okay? You can't do that. You can't have double-digit turnovers. And 11 to 5, some people say, well, 11's, not that bad. Double-digit turnovers, I don't want those at all. Syracuse only had 2 steals in the game. That's not good enough. So that has to change too. So there's things that need to change and need to be adjusted. But I think the biggest glaring issue is the fact that they cannot play zone for 100% of the game unless they want to lose 100% of the rest of their games. And Jim's going to have to not be stubborn, which is potentially a very tall task to ask 47 years into being a head coach. But if Jim can show that he can evolve with the times, then all of a sudden we're back to, we're in a new era of Jim Boeheim and we're back to winning again. I think Jim can't stand in Jim's way. That's what I feel about it. But there's positives on this team. There's things to build upon. And you can feel free to send me your thoughts, good, bad, and indifferent, on the feed here, facebook.com/wakeupcalldt and youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. I look forward to talking with you Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time in our regularly scheduled broadcast of Wake Up Call on youtube.com, facebook.com, and mixlr.com, all /wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/live-now-dt, and on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage. Once the shows go live, you can catch us in the archives by going to Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, MixLR, Player FM, Podbean, Podvine, TuneIn, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and more. Search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. A big thanks to our incredible partners, Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, Witty Wicks, as well as the Wildcat Sports Pub, Avicoli's, PB&J's Lunchbox, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, with half-price refills if you buy a tin there for the rest of your life. Great Lakes Honda City, Chick-fil-A Watertown, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Mother's Cupboard, Chick-fil-A Cicero, and Chick-fil-A Clay, Pizza Man, 317 at Montgomery Street. The name of the location is the name of the restaurant. And Lemoyne College and Bryan and Stratton College of Syracuse for being exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Go on to wakeupcalldt.com right now and click on the Lemoyne tab, as we have updated it in a massive way and improved our library of everything you can see with our Lemoyne College Dolphins coverage. So go to the Lemoyne tab on wakeupcalldt.com and the Bryan and Stratton tab, which is BSC Syracuse tab on wakeupcalldt.com, and see the mountain of coverage that we have had in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with them. You can also go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, and click subscribe and get all of our Lemoyne coverage as well as our Bryan and Stratton College of Syracuse coverage by simply subscribing to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. For more on the Dolphins, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com. For more on the Bobcats, go to Syracuse.bscbobcats.com. As always, folks, I appreciate you being here inside of the Cafe Cabal Studios with our Witty Wicks candle shining bright. Nothing like some good hot chocolate smell for the studio. In the meantime, I hope you have a fantastic day. And I do want to make a note right now, because I said I'd talk about the ACC. I'm going to be doing more about the ACC in this coming week on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. But with the loss, Syracuse has propelled Pitt to the top. And so, well, I should say Pitt has propelled Pitt. I don't want to take anything away from Pittsburgh. They played a hell of a game. But Pittsburgh right now at the top of the ACC once again, still not ranked, and a 10 seed according to some idiots that are apparently doing brackets. And I say idiots because it's idiocy. Last year, the ACC didn't get respect, and look at what the ACC did. This year you had Clemson and Pitt, the top two teams in the ACC standings. They weren't ranked, but they were above Miami, Virginia, and NC State, who are ranked in the nation's top 25, which is ridiculous to me. So, well, what about quad and all this quad 1, quad 2 BS? The ACC is hard. It's a difficult conference to play in. Boston College beating Virginia. North Carolina beating Virginia. Those aren't flukes. Boston College is working at getting better. North Carolina is a team that people regarded as the best team in the country going into the season. So you shouldn't be like, oh, wow, it's an underdog. No. North Carolina is not a bad team. And Virginia's not a bad team for losing 2 in a row. And FSU has been a good team so many times and got no respect. This year they have a losing record, and people don't want to give them respect again, and then they go and beat Miami, knocking Miami out of first place. This conference is a good conference, and they deserve more respect. 9 Big Ten teams, give me a friggin' break. Okay? When you have these teams in the ACC fighting like hell and deserving their opportunities too. I'm not saying don't give the Big Ten their love. I'm just saying stop hating on the ACC. We'll take a step aside, and we'll talk with you on Monday. God bless. No stress. Do your best.